Yesterday was a big day. Let's get right into it. Adelita Grijalva was finally sworn in. In case you missed it, Adelita won a special election in September of this year to fill her late father's seat in the U.S. House for Arizona's 7th District. And she won by a wide margin, becoming the first Latina ever to represent Arizona in Congress. But her being finally sworn in yesterday is significant. Her swearing in was delayed by nearly 50 days, which is the longest lag in modern congressional history. This was, and honestly still is, a deeply frustrating move because the obvious stall prevented her from being sworn in and doing her job, which just so happens to include becoming the 218th signature on a discharge position destined to force the release of the Epstein files. The delay was so obviously intentional, and so when she did take oath, it was pretty iconic that she wasted no time. Let's take a look.
Who have experienced violence and exploitation, including Liz Stein and Jessica Michaels, both survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. They are here in the gallery with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ+ rights because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files. Justice cannot wait another day. Adelante, mi gente. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
She walked in surrounded by Epstein survivors and immediately added her name to the discharge petition. That move sent a clear message. You can stall the process, you can try to hold this seat and this vote back, but you cannot keep community out of representation, and you can't keep her out of action. I say this about voting, and I say this about participating in democracy and being civically engaged, but if your individual actions didn't hold power, they wouldn't work so hard to exclude you. Mike Johnson just looked so desperate. Week after week, Johnson was just inventing new scheduling excuses. So the fact that she brought survivors with her was such a powerful FU to all of them. It was a symbolic reminder of who's actually impacted when powerful people slow walk justice. After weeks of political foot dragging, her presence, her vote, and her statement made it clear that delaying her swearing in only strengthened her resolve. And she used her very first act in Congress to stand with survivors and to demand transparency that's been so long overdue. And imagine, after all that BS, to have to stand there and take a photo with Mike Johnson.
Okay.
Handshake.
Handshake.
Thank you.
We'll leave the camera to it.
Wow, that's a big one.
Congresswoman, why did it take so long to get sworn in?
Thank you guys. That would be another, that would not be my question.
Look, I really like this lady. She's going to be an excellent member of Congress. She's a great person. I just told her on the way in that she fills her father's shoes, or she's going to try. No one can.
No one can.
He was a giant around here, served a long time, served his state very well. I served under him in the Natural Resources Committee for a while and admired the way he did the work. He was tenacious. So she has a proud family legacy, and we're delighted to have her here. She may not agree with me, but we follow the custom of the House on the timetable, and we've had a little, as we say in the Deep South, some intense fellowship about that.
Yes.
Okay. But she's here now, and I promised that we would have her the oath administered before we began legislative business, so she hasn't missed a vote, and we're delighted you're here. So anything I can do to help you, as I do all members, happy to get you acclimated and do everything. But you know more than most because your dad was here for a long time.
I visited.
Yes.
I never did this job, so this is brand spanking new. So
right.
I will take the offer of help.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, Every woman in a position of power ever knows exactly how Adelita feels in this moment right here. Let's talk about it. First of all, this whole exchange is just cringe. So we have MAGA Mike, who delayed her swearing in for nearly 2 months, then immediately tried to act all friendly as if none of that had happened and it wasn't his fault. The disconnect between his actions and his tone is so painfully obvious. He, of course, makes it even more weird by centering himself with comments like, "She might not like me," just highlighting the tension he created in the first place. But the part that really bothers me most is him calling her this lady. It just feels gross. Okay, quick background on me. I studied diversity, equity, and inclusion for the editorial process in a non-degree program at Cornell Industrial Labor Relations School. And in my life as an executive, I have authored many of style guides on balanced language, on how to make sure we're calling people in, not calling them out. So I am hyper aware of these sort of microaggressions in language, especially when directed at high-achieving women. So MAGA Mike calling a congressional representative lady is a dismissive and diminutive choice, especially in a formal professional setting where she is a duly elected member of Congress, and a significant one, not some random acquaintance in Tennessee. Compare this to how he talked about the previous member in this seat, her late father. He had no issue, no hesitation using her father's full honorific, calling him a giant. But he reduced her title to this lady, and you might be like, okay, Lauren, chill, but pay attention to these imbalances and the frequency at which they are used going forward. These language techniques are subtle, but they are here to undermine her authority. Women in politics, or women in all spaces for that matter, are constantly infantized or reduced linguistically. And this phrase taps right into that pattern. And moreover, it feels performative. MAGA Mike goes back to talking about himself and being Southern and making it clear he wants credit for being nice, for playing nice, while still using language that reinforces hierarchy and minimizes her presence at her swearing-in ceremony. And that same dynamic shows up in how figures like Caroline Leavitt operate, leaning on condescension and antagonism and this manufactured tough girl persona that punches down while pretending it's empowerment. Let's take a look.
Requests. So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown.
When Caroline Leavitt calls something a manufactured hoax by the Democratic Party, it's the same move she uses every time she's confronted with facts she doesn't want to deal with. She did it when she claimed tariffs were a tax cut, when she mislabeled a Bush-appointed judge as an Obama activist, and when she pushed that non-existent 50 million condoms in Gaza story. The claim doesn't need evidence with her. It just needs to be said with enough certainty that she can pivot from blaming the media when somebody asks to her just backing it up. Her critics point out that this isn't messaging, this is a repetition technique. It's used as a shield. It's the oldest trick in the book, used by many authoritarians. Mussolini, repeat the line, ignore the corrections, and treat every challenge as partisan hostility. She's not informing the public, she's running a script. The story changes, the tactic doesn't though. Deny, redirect, accuse, repeat. So when she dismisses another inconvenient topic as a partisan hoax, it's no revelation. It's her default. No correction, no engagement, never any accountability, just volume and certainty filling the space where facts should be. And the irony of this whole performance is that she isn't helping the man she's supposed to be doing this for. You can spin, deny, and repeat all you want, Caroline, but the public notices. That's why Trump's approval ratings and his numbers have been sinking in their usual swamp. They are in the gutter right now. People aren't buying the fact anymore, not from her and not from him.
When you talk to you hear from the victims, it is very clear what they want. They've made that clear again and again. What does the American public think about how Donald Trump has been handling the Epstein files compared to all the other issues that he brought up during the campaign?
Yeah, Donald Trump is underwater on basically every single issue he ran on in 2024. But the Epstein files, the Epstein case, are especially dreadful for him. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at Trump's net approval rating on the issue. Look, they're all in red. They're all in the negative territory. But on immigration, he's 5 points underwater. Foreign policy, 8 points. Trade and tariffs, he's 17 points. The economy, 18 points. But look at the Epstein case. He is 39 points below water on the Epstein case. His net approval is 39 points in the negative. My goodness gracious. What Donald Trump has been selling on the Epstein files, the Epstein case, the American people, simply put, have not been buying at all, Sarah Seidner.
All right, so is there any sign that things have gotten better since there have been some things that have been released?
Yeah, okay.
Although released by Democrats.
There have been some things that have been released. Donald Trump has been trying to make some sort of case saying that, you know, the folks don't necessarily care about it. But take a look here. Approve of the Trump admin on the Epstein case in early July, right, when you had those DOJ droppings, right? It was 17%. Look at where we were by late September, the latest poll I can find it. 20%. You know, we often talk about Donald Trump having this floor, right, of at about 40%. On this particular issue, he is less than half the level of the supposed floor. There's just nobody. There is just nobody in the electorate who is buying this. They do not like the way that the Trump administration has been handling this case one iota.
Republicans have generally said they like what Donald Trump is doing, generally speaking. How do they feel about the Epstein case?
Okay, so you see, approve of Trump on the Epstein case. This is overall, right? And you see 17%, you say 20%. That is way below the 40% floor that Donald Trump supposedly has. How does that possibly happen? It's because of Republicans. Because look at this number. Okay, Republicans who approve of Trump's job as president, 87%. That is basically in line with the long-term average, 85, 90, 95%. But look at the Trump admin's job on the Epstein case. Just 45% of Republicans, less than half of Republicans are even buying what the administration is telling. Look, we're not necessarily sure whether or not this case has moved the ball on Trump's overall approval rating yet, but I can tell you that the more that this case is in the news, the worse it is for Donald Trump, because simply put, it is his worst issue by far.
We could be seeing a vote on this next week. This case is not going away anytime soon.
It is not going away anytime soon, and that is bad news politically for Donald John Trump.
All right.
Trump's net negatives across every major issue, we're talking immigration, foreign policy, trade, tariffs, the economy, they are devastating, precisely because his entire political identity is built on ego, on strength. When a guy who sells himself as the ultimate deal maker is sitting at -5, -8, -17, -18 on issues he claims to dominate, it signals a real collapse in public confidence. And then there's the Epstein number, -35. This is so important because it means the public is skeptical. We're already uneasy. We're already unwilling to believe that there's not more out there. This is a rare moment of vulnerability for somebody who has survived scandals most politicians could never. And that's exactly why we cannot let the Epstein case die. Like I've said before, this is not only for the survivors, though that alone should be enough, but because this is one of the only issues that cuts across ideology and actually unifies people around the need for accountability. What a thought. And if this case reaches daylight, it doesn't damage just Trump. It exposes the entire ecosystem of bad people who protected, enabled, or benefited from the world of power and secrecy around child sex trafficking. And the standard has to be universal. I don't care if you're Bernie Sanders, Uncle Bernie, AOC, or anyone else. If you're if your name is in those files, you're done. No excuses, no, but they're on our side, no moral carve-outs. This is the one place where accountability cannot be selective or compromised. And the one place where the country might finally say, we've had enough. And if you've enjoyed this video or it's expanded your perspective, take a moment to share it with somebody who needs to see this and make sure you're subscribed. We'll be back with more.